It's called The Real Story by Stephanie Pace Marshall. It happens imperceptibly, so silent, so slowly. We cannot know the time nor the place. We cannot name the day nor the moment. We cannot tell when we came to know that to become ourselves, we had to hide ourselves. We had to protect our soul, to sequester our spirits, and learn to doubt our gifts, what we knew we really loved. We are not born alone, empty, or lost. We are born into the vibrant web of life. We are born to wonder, to be creative, and to be open to the abundant possibilities of life and learning. Breathing in the joy of exploration and discovery, singing with the wind and dancing with the trees, blossoming with the first buds of spring. We did not know what we could not or should not do or be. We were free to play and to wonder, to try out all of whom we might become, buoyed by our imagination and embraced by a palpable yet transcendent field of connections, and belonging so big that it took our breath away. But slowly, new and old voices began to tell a different story, began to ask us to live a different story. They told us that wonder, awe, and imagination were only for the young, that we would outgrow them, that the world they called real would soon teach us to change our minds about everything, about the joy of exploration and discovery, about singing with the wind, about dancing with the trees, about blossoming with the first buds of spring, about belonging to the world, ourselves, and one another. And gradually, just as they said we would, we became the story they told us. The wind still embraced us, but we had no time for singing. The trees still danced, but we dared not to join them. And the first blossoms of spring emerged without us becoming a part of their flowering. But as gradually as we had become lost, we were reinvited into the world of our hearts, souls, and spirits had always known was truly real. A new story was being told, a story of meaning and mystery, of wholeness and wonder, of imagination and connections, of life and learning. And it was living this story that returned me to who I am. It was living this story that reconnected me to the natural world, to the song of the wind, to the dance of the trees, to the flowering of the first buds of spring. It was living this story that returned me to myself and told me that I am not alone, empty, or lost. It was living this story that brought me back to life and told me that I belong.
All of you were amazing, beautiful human beings, contrary to what we may have heard in the past. And let me tell you something. There is not a darn thing wrong with any one of you. How powerful is that? Think about that. You are perfect just as you are. So there. That's what I have to say this morning. Let's eat. No. So this morning I want to refer back to the real story that Joy shared with us. And I'm wondering if you found anything in there that rang true for you. I know I did. The one line in particular that caught my personal attention the first time I read it was, to become ourselves, we have to hide ourselves. And I remember, growing up as a youth and even in my 20s and 30s, yeah, I'm older than that. I know that shocks you, right? I know. But even in my 20s and 30s, I thought, I don't want to share what I believe is the truth because, I don't like getting ridiculed. I don't like people telling me you're wrong. I don't like people saying things to me that don't feel good. So I had to internalize everything. And what how grateful I am for that gift. Because when we go inside, we find our own truth. And then we become empowered with that truth, and we're able to be who we are. So I really love that idea. It really resonated with me. So I read this story about a man who in his youth had this burning desire to become a great writer. And so somebody asked him to define what he meant by a great writer. What does great mean? And he said, well, I want to write something that the whole world will read. I want to write things that people will have this great emotional reaction to. And he said, even if they scream, if they howl, if they cry at it, I want to be that writer. So he grew up to write error messages for Microsoft. That was a little bit late there, you guys. So the point being, our dreams really can become a reality, right? We were born into this life with all kinds of possibilities. We were open to the wonder. We were open to that creativity that life had in front of us abundantly. And when we were young, we had absolutely no problem dreaming big, did we? And having these grand expectations, knowing that the world was at our fingertips. And it was such an exciting time. And then we grew up. We began to receive those conflicting messages that most of us probably heard. And more importantly, we began to believe those messages. Feeling as if that joy and that wonder and that creativity that we so desired was simply the imagination of a young child. So to please family and society, we learned how to conform. We learned how to do things right. We learned how to think. We learned how to behave. And from a young age, many of us were molded and shaped into a box. Whatever size and shape that box was, generally speaking, it was a box of some sort. We believed it when these older people, these wiser people, told us that the real world wouldn't be so kind. That we would change our minds eventually about everything. And as we did that, our dreams began to melt away as if they never even existed. And so, as any self-fulfilling prophecy will do, it became true. At least for a time. And then we woke up. And then we said, I don't think so. This isn't the truth of who I am. We opened up to and accepted that invitation from our heart, from our soul, to live our truth, to be who we are, and to do that out loud and not feel like we had to go hide. We learned to inquire and find out. We wanted to inquire and find out why those dreams and desires couldn't be realized. We wanted to find that out for ourselves. We had that need, that longing to understand and to become more of who we are, to live that truth that was living inside of us. And when we got to that point, our new story did begin. One with meaning, with mystery, wholeness, wonder, imagination, and our realization of our oneness, of our connection with all things. And that is exactly how we arrived where we are today. And may I say, it's an amazing place to be. Joseph Campbell said this, the privilege of a lifetime is being who you are. And I think that says it best. So, it may have taken us a few years, decades, to get where we are, and here we are. We made it. We're open and we're ready to explore and expand. So to be ourself is a very popular piece of advice. You've probably heard it oh so very many times. Even the ancient Greeks said, know thyself. Although the concept of self, with a capital S I'm talking, is not necessarily that clear to us. Yet we all seem to sense that pattern of qualities and characteristics and traits that are uniquely our own, that belong to us. So how do we become who we are? How do we know that? How do we know who we are? Which kind of seems like a silly question, doesn't it? Because we spend all of our time with ourselves. You would think we know who we are. Yet we can still be unaware of our true nature, even living with ourselves, day to day, hour to hour, minute to minute. Self-knowledge is the foundation of any successful, fulfilling life, because with self-knowledge, we can learn to take very powerful actions toward the life that we want to create, toward that life that we want to live and experience. There's no such thing as a successful life that isn't relative to ourself, capital S. Each of us has our own idea of what a fulfilling, successful life looks like. Our work is to figure out what that means for us personally and individually. Creating a simple life is not as easy as going and Googling it, right? We're also used to using Google. We can't just go online and say, give me the latest and greatest. There's a lot more work to it than that. There's a specific way in which each of us will live a fulfilled life. Without knowing who we are, we may never know what that is or what that will look like. Sidney Harris wrote this: 90% of the world's woe comes from people not knowing themselves, their abilities, their frailties, and even their virtues. Most of us go almost all the way through life as complete strangers to ourselves. I don't like that. Isn't that kind of sad? Most of us go through life without realizing who we truly are. Not this group, because we all know, right? We all know who we are. Many people do, though. So who are we? Simply put, we're spiritual beings having this amazing human experience. And it's amazing. Sometimes it looks better than other days. Some days looks better than other days is what I'm trying to say. Is that the truth? It's still an amazing experience, though. And we aren't the only ones. We've had great company over the years. Jesus and Buddha, they walked this earth as human beings with that same idea of inquiring into, what is my true nature? Who am I? What am I called to do? What is my purpose here? They didn't just wake up one day and say, oh, that's it. No, it was a process. None of it happens overnight. Buddha didn't sit under that Bodhi tree for 5 minutes and get enlightened. It was a much longer process than that, but he was steadfast in his quest for attaining that level of enlightenment that he was searching for. We have within us the same light, the same love, the same intelligence flowing through us that all of the master teachers embodied. We have that same stuff inside of us. We can do it too. Now, these great teachers, all of the great teachers, live by gifts of the Spirit. Love, charity, peace, kindness, generosity, joy, faithfulness, and gentleness. Those are described and recognized by all faiths in one form or another because they are aspects of humanity's true nature. And you can't change our true nature. It's who we are at our deepest core. And we recognize and appreciate those gifts inherently because something in each one of us knows that good when we see it or when we feel it. When we admire those qualities in Jesus or in Buddha or in somebody we know, it's because we're seeing our best selves being reflected back to us. That's a really powerful thought. If you haven't thought about that before or didn't understand that before, that's really powerful because you cannot see in somebody else what you don't already have within. It obviously has to exist in you for you to recognize that. And by mirroring our true nature, it awakens us to that power and to that presence within us, and it encourages further realization of our true selves. The gifts of the Spirit are a subject of rich and very practical teachings, and it's a way that we can familiarize ourselves to our true nature. And in the Soul's Compass, the book that I'm working with, they explain it as a guide to how an enlightened society, a civilization with a heart, might live. So the gifts of the Spirit that you already possess are these: love. In its purest form, it is projected unconditionally, that's the key word, unconditionally toward all people and toward all things. Joy is that bliss that arises from within us without dependence on anything external. Peace is the realization that the moment you're experiencing right now is really the only one. Patience is the capacity to wait while the muddy water of confusion and uncertainty settles. Kindness is remembering to love thy neighbor as thyself, no conditions. Generosity. Our true nature radiates generosity with no expectation of return or even the consciousness of being generous. Faithfulness is matching our actions and our intentions. Gentleness is touching a living reality so sensitively that you can feel it responsively touching you right back. And self-control is the capacity to be still and to wait for that right moment to act. As we learn to utilize those gifts, to express them in our daily lives, to allow them to be who we are, we're living from a place of our true nature. And those are the qualities that we love so much in others, aren't they? We see those and they go, wow, that person's so loving, that person's so kind, that person's so generous. Self-realization is a blossoming forth of spirituality in a very dynamic way. So take time to use those gifts. This isn't about passively seeing yourself in beings and in things. This is about being completely present with that. One who really sees the self in all and the all in self feels the joys, feels the sufferings of all beings as their own. Because it's never just about I, it's always about we. The idea of self-realization is to question yourself, to be in touch with, to know yourself. Am I living my truth? Am I being who I am called to be? Am I exhibiting the gifts of spirit in my daily life? Am I moving closer to my true nature? Are my actions and my intentions a match? Really some basic things to think about as you move through your day. Life is a mirror reflecting back to you what you think, what you expect, what you feel, and what you do. And the way to improve that reflection is simply to improve what's being reflected. Be the love, be the compassion, be the strength, be the responsibility that you want to see in other people. Be the best example that you can possibly imagine, and you will absolutely be thrilled with what comes back to you. Because as you live to your true highest self with purpose, that's what's going to expand in your life and in your world. Letting go of the past, forgiving yourself, fundamental first step. Surrender to what is. Maintain that genuine sense of gratitude for everything, for all of it, for what you've learned, what you've experienced through your life up to this point. Everyone suffers. Everyone makes mistakes. It's part of a process of being a human being. Everybody also simply wants to be happy. And living the gifts of the Spirit will go a long way in helping us to attain that happiness. You are right now, in this moment, and every moment of your life, becoming the person you think that you're going to become. And the simple act of intentionally deciding upon where it is you want to be or do will point you solidly in that absolute direction. Contrary to what you've been told, all things are possible. All things are possible. And make your life a story worth telling. I'm going to close this morning with this beautiful daily prayer that I hope you hold on to. I don't remember exactly who wrote it, but it's called Seasons of the Heart. Oh God, help me to believe the truth about myself, no matter how beautiful it is. Thank you for being here while I shared this truth as I understand it.